Go for main engine start.
We have a go for main engine start. Mission and liftoff of Discovery, celebrating its 25th birthday by racking up science and supplies to the space station.
The solid rocket boosters flew away.
Columbia, Houston, UHF comm check. Roger, roll.
The NASA Space Shuttle Program. One of my favorite endeavors in space exploration history, the STS program made a number of extremely noteworthy achievements. The orbital vehicle was the first reusable spacecraft and a serious step in taking space travel beyond rockets and landing modules. The shuttle helped build the International Space Station, launched the Hubble telescope into space and repaired it after its disastrous lens flaw, and quite frankly, was the most advanced creation of its time and holds a legacy behind it that will last forever. So, how did the shuttle program begin? Well, that's a difficult question to answer. We could talk about the plans of the Air Force in the 1950s, who discussed a number of different ideas related to space planes that could perform orbital reconnaissance and repair satellites. One of these early designs was the Boeing X-20 Dinosaur, which suffered from severe funding issues and a lack of proper direction for the project. It was cancelled in 1963, and no X-20 was ever built to completion during that time. In 1969, a number of discussions were held to determine the future of NASA's operations in light of the success of the Apollo program. 4 major options were considered: a human mission to Mars, a follow-on lunar program, a low Earth orbital infrastructure program, and discontinuing human space activities. Consider that for a moment. In 1969, as man was landing on the moon, there was an official discussion held in which "why should we bother" was a legitimate option. God, politicians suck. Speaking of, President Nixon made the decision to pursue the Orbital Infrastructure Program, which proposed a space station, a reusable shuttle to build and maintain it, and the strengthening of global satellite networks. In the end, I can agree with the logic of this decision. The Apollo program was the height of space cowboys, days of daring pursuits that put lives in danger and made solutions on the fly. So in the wake of that, infrastructure seems like a good choice. If it had been me, I'd have made the infrastructure focused on servicing both the follow-on lunar program and the mission to Mars, but I guess Nixon wasn't smart enough for that, or his pockets weren't deep enough. The design of the space shuttle was extremely focused on cost effectiveness. There was a serious drive to come away from single-use rockets and use more complex and more expensive reusable systems that, upon compounded use, would in the end cost less than the rockets. Other details changed a lot. Initially, the boosters were designed to be reusable in and of themselves, but this was deemed too expensive and complicated. Instead, they opted for a design of reusable solid rocket boosters and an external propellant tank that would be discarded by the orbiter. At first, it was intended that the orbiter would hold its own liquid fuel. However, studies showed that the external tank allowed the orbiter to have a much larger cargo bay, which offset the cost of needing to throw away the fuel tank. In addition, the orbiter was meant to have jet engines to assist in maneuvering within the Earth's atmosphere, but the option of making it a simple glide orbiter was a safer option, as similar projects had already been carried out successfully like the X-15. The final design decision regarded the boosters. While NASA had wanted to go with liquid boosters that would provide better performance, lower per-flight costs, less environmental impact, and less environmental risk, solid boosters were cheaper. In 1986, the real drawback of this decision would be realized, but that's another video. With the design finalized, Rockwell began construction on the first shuttle in 1974, naming it Enterprise. It had no engines or heat shielding, as it was designed specifically to be a test vehicle for the shuttle's in-atmosphere functions. While Enterprise was being tested, the construction of Columbia was commissioned, intending to be a vehicle fully fitted for space travel. The longest part of her construction ended up being the shuttle's thermal protection system. Previous spacecraft used ablative heat shields, but those couldn't be reused. Instead, 30,000 ceramic tiles covered the lower portion of the shuttle, able to be individually replaced when needed. Columbia would arrive at the Kennedy Space Center in 1979, with 6,000 of these tiles still needing to be installed. Enterprise underwent flight testing in 1977, using a modified Boeing 747 called the Shuttle Carrier Aircraft. This aircraft would carry Enterprise through its first approach and landing tests, until finally, on August 12, 1977, history was made. the Enterprise conducted its first glide test, detaching from the shuttle carrier aircraft and landing itself at Edwards AFB.
Take one step. 32 clear.
Hey, we got a GPC light, lost the sync on 2, pushing over.
And a big X on computer number 2.
Roger, standby and halt on GPC number 2. Go for mode 203.
Roger.
Okay, she's flying good.
Roger. Roger, cleared to start to turn.
Okay, Gordo's in the turn. It is really tight, Bo. In fact, I think it's a little better than the old STA field.
Great.
Okay, Gordo, on the turn, 16,250.
Fullerton flying now.
Okay.
Right, we now recommend 50% speed brakes.
10,285. Speed brake's looking good, Gordo.
Okay, they're open about 45 now.
Houston copies.
Here coming.
Doors open and they're all down, coming down. Look down here. 50 feet. 40 feet. 30. 20. 15. 10. Holding 10. 220 at about 5 feet. 4 feet. Getting some dust. 4 feet. 3 feet. 2 feet. Just holding off about 2 feet. You're on. You're on. Okay, your nose wheel's about 10 feet. About 5. 4 feet. About 5 feet. 4, 3, 2, 1. We'll see you, babe.
Okay, that's great.
After 4 additional flights, the Enterprise would be moved to the Marshall Space Flight Center. Here it underwent stress tests, being connected to an external tank and boosters, and being subjected to vibrations to simulate a real launch. These tests would form the foundation of STS-1, the shuttle's first crewed flight to space. But that is for the next video. If you like this video, please give it a like. If you want to see more, please subscribe to my channel, which is DeadKennedyInSpace. If you want to support me further, consider donating on Patreon or purchasing some of my work through Amazon or Teespring. Thank you, and I'll see you over the curve, Space Cowboys.
Live there, on the mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam, in a vast cosmic arena.